What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blerd Out. One Piece chapter 1179 has dropped, and let me tell you guys, a big chapter. Now, if you're on any Twitter or social media that contains anime stuff, you would have seen that people were saying, stay away from spoilers, watch out for anything that might talk about One Piece, because this chapter was going to be huge, and yeah, it was. So I think this episode is going to be just a chapter-centered episode. I have some updates on some of the seasonals, I have some updates on some of the shows I was watching. We'll talk about that next week, and I think that's when some of the newer seasonal stuff will kick in too. I don't think Wisteria starts till 2 weeks from now, so I still got some time to catch up on everything before the important stuff comes back. But as always, if you have not caught up in the latest chapters and episodes, please note there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Okay, chapter 1179, NERONA IMU descends. And by that title alone, you can tell it's gonna be hype. Well, let's talk about the cover request. So we have Ace, Otama, and Yamato taking boar piglets on a field trip to the wetlands. And it's Ace with the Otama hat, the ones that she makes, like when she first met him. And he's in his classic garb. So this is like before Whitebeard Pirates, when he used to have like the yellow shirt. This is early Ace. And then you have Yamato, you have Otama, and then you have like I don't remember, is it the Lord of the Mountain? The mountain pig? The giant pig, it looks like, that Odin cut in half. It looks like that one. I don't know if that's the exact same one, because I can't really tell, and it doesn't really show you the stitching that would have gone through the middle, but that's the one it looks like. But a cute cover story. We start the chapter where we left off, where Imu was talking about going directly to Elbaf. And immediately you have the Gorosei, and they're like, excuse me? Like, are you serious right now? Are you going to Elbaf? And they're like, listen, hold on a second. Like, surely you don't intend to go yourself. Like, that's crazy for you to descend yourself to the lower realm. And like, they're all obviously freaking out. And as they're doing that, Garling walks in. And Garling's like, listen, we ain't got time for all these games. We ain't got time to play around. Like, we're kind of in dire straits right now. The Holy Land can't be defended under these conditions, and we were talking about this earlier where it looks like the Holy Land was under some sort of duress, like under attack, because we saw like the piles of scrap and stuff, and it looks like something is definitely going on in the Holy Land. Garling mentions that Shamrock's return is helping quell matters, but they're still having issues, and they were arrogant to think that basically not taking the lower dwellings, not taking the realm dwellers, but basically not taking like the rebellion seriously. So not only are these starvation tactics working because they can't feed their troops, they can't feed the celestial dragons, but it seems like they are being attacked as well. And because they don't have like well-fed troops, they don't have the proper defenses. And now it could be that Garling is planning for a future attack and saying like, we can't defend the Holy Land if they attack because our troops aren't fed, or if they're currently being attacked. Again, I think they are currently being attacked based on the rubble we saw outside. Garling then says that they have to set up a priority and assert dominance back in the world. Make sure people know who they're messing with. And he talks about getting all their military might together. He says even the former Navy HQ, and I don't know if he was going to say HQ Admiral, as in Sengoku, if he was going to say like, if he was going to say Kong, if he was going to say Garp, if he was going to say like Aokiji. There's one specific person he's saying like we need to call them in, and we're very specifically cut off by York. Now York is calling in, and York at this point it seems like is being considered a celestial dragon because that's how she refers herself, and it looks like they have set up a lab power plant in Maryjoy. So they're like the actual mother flame they have set up in Maryjoy, similar to how they had it over on Egghead. And Garling's like, listen, we ain't got no food. We definitely can't get it down there to you. And honestly, if you want us to get food faster, you need to start pumping out some energy from the mother flame. So even though we have the mother flame here, it doesn't seem like they're getting it to work the way they want it. And I don't know if there's a missing factor, if the conditions aren't all right here, but for some reason, she's not getting any energy from the mother flame, so they can't really utilize it right now. I'm guessing what they want to do is utilize that to use the ancient weapon again and basically wipe out whatever rebellion is threatening them right now. But they can't because they don't have any power. York's crying about it, and Garling says like, listen, Vegapunk could be considered aligned with this rebellion, so we shouldn't even have to pay you to do this. This should be something you do basically in penance. And I would say that they're saying Vegapunk had something to do with it just because of the speech, where he may have incited a deeper form of rebellion, even though that wasn't his intention. And so he hangs up on York and he's like, man, it's just one disaster after another. And he's talking with the Gorosei sitting in Saturn's chair, and he's like, and this all started once Nika resurfaced. The question comes up if they are to keep considering these mere coincidences, like, Nika showed up and then all these problems started showing up all in a short period of time. But Jupiter quickly is like, listen, forget about that. Back to Imu. You can't leave the castle. Let us dispatch the admirals. Let us do anything else but having you leave Pangaea Castle. And Nostromo cuts him off and mentions that we can't really do that because we have a bunch of other incidents that require their attention. And it's like, for what's happening here, Imu, the Gods Knights, a lot of these factions are not known to the main world. So as far as that goes, the admirals, the vice admirals, those are their highest powers as far as like what they can send out to the civilian world without exposing certain things. So it's like, if we pull the admirals to Elbaf, we can't do anything out in the real world because we don't have a fighting force. The vice admirals ain't gonna do anything. And to be honest, sending the admirals to Elbaf just means they're getting washed. You have to think about the fighting force you have there already, which is the Straw Hats. You got Loki, you got Scopper, you have all of the giants. Like, it's just, they're not getting anything done there. They're getting washed, they're getting packed up, they're getting sent home. So it's like, that doesn't work either. Warcry stands up and he's like, okay, in that case, we must once again, and he gets cut off by Imu, but I think what he's gonna say is that the Gorosei must once again, travel and stop whatever's happening. And Imu's like, listen, I'm gonna stop you right there. These aren't coincidences. These are all like sporadic issues that are happening under one root cause, and we have to stop being arrogant and negligent. Like, we gotta get rid of all this stuff because it's making us mess up big time. And what Warcry's gonna say is like, we gotta go over there again. And Imu's like, nah, that failed. You guys went to Egghead, didn't accomplish a single thing. Vegapunk's message got out, the Straw Hats got away, Nika returned. You guys accomplished jack squat. So we're not doing that again. And Imu's like, anyway, this was all inevitable. Base back from Rox to Roger to Neptune to Shanks to Harold, everything that they set in motion was all part of this one big thing that's coming to fruition now. And like, we're getting some thoughts of Imu, it looks like, basically getting information like when they figured out Loki was the Fog ship's captain when he was out taking out government ships. They're looking at Whitebeard, like, why did he protect that young man? Monkey D. Luffy, they're looking at Marshall Teach. Everything that's been culminating, they're looking at Cobra talking about Lily. Then we get a cutscene to where Imu was cutting up the posters of Luffy and Blackbeard and had Vivi. Everything that's been leading up to this point has all been like a part of the same motion. Like, none of this is a coincidence. None of this is out of the ordinary. Like, none of this is a coincidence. This is all predetermined. It was all set into motion long ago. And I think this even stems back to the Void Century, like back when Lily actually did the entire inscription of the poneglyphs and all that stuff. Like, this is that motion. And at this point, Imu was like, you know what? I'm heading over. The Holy Land is gonna be left in your hands. Take care of it. I'm heading over there. Now, the Gorosei are still clamoring to be like, listen, you can't go. And initially they make it sound like you shouldn't lower yourself to the realm of the surface dwellers. Like, you shouldn't bring yourself to that level. But as they talk about it, they're like, hey, no, if you go to the surface, like, there are consequences. And it seems like Garling and even Nostromo are kind of like, we can't really stop this. Like, there's no point in trying to convince Imu to do anything. It's gonna happen. But you have Mars and Workery who are just like freaking out. Like, Mars is visibly shaking and he's just like in distress. Workery is like, if you leave this castle, he gets cut off. And Jupiter mentions that Imu is aware of the consequences. So it's not just a matter of lowering themselves to like the surface dwellers. It's a matter of consequence. Like, leaving this castle will actually have some consequence on Imu. And so we see the circle flare up and then poof, Imu's gone. We cut back to Elbaf and we're treated to a scene with the new giant warrior pirates, and it seems like they have all gathered and picked up Summers. Now, he has, for the most part, reconnected, but they did the same thing to Strides at the Killingham, where like they tie him up and keep him separated. And like Gerd's kind of playing with him, like holding his pieces together, because she mentions that it's like a magnet. So like his upper half and his lower half are trying to reconnect, so they're pulling themselves together. And Summers is like, all right, your name Gerd, right? Like, I'm gonna get you for this. I'm coming back for that. And I don't know why that stands out to me. That seems very specific that Summers learned Gerd's name and is like, I'm coming back for you. That seems really specific. Because I feel like normally you're just like, I'll get you guys for this, like, or I'll get my revenge. But like, he specifically called out Gerd and was like, all right, I heard your name was Gerd. I'm coming for you, Gerd. And they also find the heart that we saw in the last chapter that was kind of weird to be sticking out like that. And it's a steel heart. And immediately Zoro was like, if we destroyed this, would he be able to put himself back together? Like, does this steel heart have some significance to its power? And based on saying that, Summers gets a very distressed face. Like, he looks terrified. So my guess is that Zoro is right on the money. If he destroyed the heart, that probably does something to at least the regenerative properties of all of the Gods Knights. So I'm assuming all the Gods Knights have a steel heart. What's weird is that we haven't seen this in Killingham, and we pan over to Killingham and he's still tied up and separated in 3 pieces. We don't see a steel heart here. I wonder if it's like legitimately just located in the chest, and maybe because they didn't separate him that way, they didn't find it. But even when you think about Gunko, she got her entire top half blown off and we didn't see a steel heart there. So it could be that they have it in different locations. It's not a feature of every Gods Knight. There's still some questions about the steel heart that I have that won't really be answered until we deal more damage to the Gods Knights. We get a panning shot of Gunko. She's frozen in the ice still. And then Loki approaches the school, which is entirely frozen over. And this is because of Lilith's machines that absorb the energy from the flames. Unfortunately, it froze all the supplies. Like, all the food is like rock solid. It's ice. And even though like Loki's kind of chewing on it, and Ragnar even to a degree is chewing on it, it doesn't look like Luffy is really able to do anything. He's too weak to bite through it. So he's kind of just gnawing on it. But then Luffy asks about Gunko. And he's like, hey, that person you froze, are they dead? Or, and Loki's like, nope, they were flash frozen, so they're not dead. They're pretty much is frozen in time. But he also mentions that the only person that can thaw them out is Ragnar. So basically, it won't break and they can't break out of it. The only way they get out of it is if Ragnar chooses. I would like to see that tested, because I do constantly see whenever we go to Gunko that the ice was cracking. I don't know if that means that it's weakening or if that, maybe that was just Imu's power. It seems like there was some structural fault to the ice. But apparently, based on what Loki's saying, it won't break unless Ragnar decides. And now that could be based on like Nilfheim like having just completely solid permafrost ice. I would have to read up on that. But I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. We scooch on over to Nami, who's still trying to put out some of the fires. Like, we have a big Zeus and he's just raining over everything. But she notices in the distance, like the clouds are doing something weird. They're starting to rumble over there. And then all of a sudden, giant black plume of smoke strikes down, and it's right in front of the castle. And like, this plume is so huge that basically everyone in Elbaf is looking in the sky and they can see it raining down. Like, in all the villages, all of the different factions of the giants, they all see this one, and then they see a bunch more plumes just start raining down. And then we get this widespread panel of like all the plumes in the sky. Like, in the clouds themselves, we see the giant magic circle, which is the summoning circle. And like the plumes are kind of connected at the bottom by connected black flames. So essentially there's a circle at the top, circle at the bottom. What I think is cool about this, I don't remember if they did it for the Gorosei arriving at Egghead, because I know the Gorosei had one on the bottom. They didn't have one in the sky. That's cool. Nami calls everyone over to look, and as like the plumes start moving and as the plumes kind of ruminate, they start to play music almost. And you start to see a bunch of objects take on like demonic spirits, and they start to move around almost like the Seducing Woods. This is very, very Seducing Woods, or even when Big Mom created all the yokai in Wano. That's what this feels like. Also to be noted, there's a very specific sound they're making, which is like do-do-do-do-don. And I think that's supposed to be essentially a foil to Luffy's sound, or the Joy Boy Nika sound. Don, 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 don. Like, I think it's supposed to be like a conflicting sound, like the drums of liberation versus the drums of chaos, or the drums of the devil. however you might want to see it, I think that's what this is. And then as things change, as spirits take over, as the clouds grow thick, one giant one strikes from the center directly into the castle. And the castle almost like expands, like it's gonna explode. And when that drop hits, a huge burst of Conqueror's Haki is unleashed, and it immediately starts knocking out kids and some of the weak people nearby. One of the things about Conqueror's Haki that always confused me, and it does still to this day, is that there are certain characters that just don't get knocked out by it. Like Chopper. I am surprised that Chopper is able to take a blast of Imu's Conqueror's Haki and not be knocked out. I can't tell if that's like a strong will thing or if that's just like a inconsistent thing. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I think it's weird, but it doesn't change too much. Loki and Luffy notice that there's Haki coming from the castle, and they also notice that it's the same Haki as before when they were fighting Gunk Emu. We pan over to the castle on the inside, and we actually see that Emu has touched down. Now, Emu is still in silhouette form, and it looks like they're bleeding out of their mouth because they're kind of propped up on the ground. Blood falls to the ground, and I think this is part of the consequence that the Gorosei were talking about. And whether it's the actual like descending to the lower realm, or if it's just the trip in general, like using this much power caused that, there's some kind of issue here where Emu can't really travel like that. We see their form start to change and like grow into this grotesque form, and then just a huge explosion on the top of the castle. The Gods Knights immediately realize that Emu is here, like, oh, they're here in person. And they see someone sitting on the castle's spire. And sitting up there at the very top, NERONA IMU. Saint NERONA IMU. In their, I don't even know what form this is, but it looks like a devil or an Oni form. And it's really sick. Like there's black clouds, there's this really cool weapon. And I think we're getting the confirmation that Imu is a he, or at least this version is. I'll talk about that in a second, but this one they refer to as he. But the design is so cool. Like, so Imu is propped up almost Itachi style on the spire. Like if it was nighttime, it would straight up just be Itachi. But propped up on the spire, this really sick looking weapon, which has like a jagged curved blade, but it also has like clouds with eyes wrapped around it, cloud at the end, like almost like wisping flames. And then there's what looks to be some kind of like cloak or tail. And it looks like the devil's tail. And I can't tell if that's like part of the cloak itself or if that's something separate, but it also kind of looks like Gunko's arrow power, just design wise insane. Also Lunarian, because they have dark skin and they have white hair. And we get a close up of Imu's face, and they do refer to Imu as he, but the features seem a bit more feminine. They have like slender hands, long nails. They have like really pronounced eyelashes, long hair, a nose that looks pretty similar to like Nico Robin's, where it's kind of like flat but sharp, like it seems like more feminine features. And we get the title box, World Government Creator, one of the first 20, and ability, Devil's Fruit. So to break down those things, World Government Creator, they're saying that Imu is the person who, after the 20 factions came together and fought against Joy Boy and their forces, Imu was the one who was like, all right, now we start the world government. And then the ability Devil's Fruit, I think we are to take that as it's the Devil no Mi, or the Devil Fruit. It's written in a very interesting way. I think we have to see the official translation to see exactly what Oda meant in this write out, because I think there's a few different ways you can interpret it. The way I'm looking at it right now is that Imu has the Devil Fruit, which is weird to say. But the devil no Mi. And also in that close-up, we do see that Imu is bleeding from the mouth. So again, the consequences of whether it be traveling down here or just traveling in general are being made apparent immediately. But yeah, that's the end of the chapter. And I believe we are on break next week. So this is a huge cliffhanger we are resting on. I think there's gonna be a lot of theory reviews, a lot of discussions. I already saw that Braga was talking about doing a discussion. I'm sure we'll have like Braga, we might have Matt, we might have Jay. Like I think everyone's gonna be talking about this. We have a break week. Tons of time, a lot of theories, a lot of stuff's gonna be thrown out here, but a really fantastic chapter, a great cliffhanger chapter. Some final thoughts on like Imu in particular, because design wise, again, they look like a Lunarian. They have certain sigils like on their body. It looks like there's some kind of ancient inscription on there. I don't know if that's doing anything. The dark skin, the white hair, very Lunarian. The clouds kind of forming around in the tail make me think that this is, and the horns actually, maybe this is some kind of hybrid form, and that a lot of what we're seeing here is the manifested power. So like the clouds, the flames on the weapon, the floating sash and tail, all of that is based on weapons. Now, what I think is happening in specific reference to the consequence is that Emu body hops. I think that Emu might be body hopping through certain lineages and using their bodies as basically new vessels. So to put it concisely, I think it's the D clan. I think D could very well stand for devil. And imagine the devil fruit needs a D clan member in order to continue thriving. So you take Law's immortality, right? You take that ability, you combine it with the devil fruit, you take that ability, and then a D clan. You put all that together and you have Emu, and how Emu has been able to survive this long. Like, imagine all of that being put together. And that's like a very loose theory. That's just what I thought at the end of the chapter. But it would make sense why Emu had Blackbeard, Luffy, and Vivi, because they're technically all D clan members. And it could be like, okay, I can't take Luffy's body, I can't take Blackbeard's body, I can take Vivi's body. And then they're saying that Lily never returned from her trip at the Holy Land. It's like, okay, well, they probably took her body, killed her, and used it as a new vessel. And that we're constantly getting that immortality, the new vessel, the devil fruit, all combined at one, all each going like century after century. But after a period of time, I imagine that body wears out and Emu has to basically re-up. Like, Emu needs a new body for a couple hundred years. That's just my theory on it. I feel like that makes sense. I think there's still a whole lot we have to figure out. Like the form that Emu takes when not in this hybrid form is interesting. I would like to see, what I'm guessing is that the form we've normally seen Emu in, like a silhouette form, is a non-hybrid. I think what we're seeing at the end of the chapter is a hybrid form. So I'm wondering if the non-hybrid is the form we're pretty accustomed to, because there still seems to be some possibility of Emu being a woman, and it could just be that it's a person in a woman's body, like, because they're using it as a vessel. But there's just no telling. But man, what a big chapter. What a big chapter. I might end up doing a theory video on the main channel about it, because I think there is something to be said about how Emu looks here. And I have some theories about Emu's powers as well that I want to talk about. So we're going to put all that together into a video on the main channel. Be looking out for that. Like I said, this is just centered on the chapter that dropped this week. I'm going to get back to the seasonals, the new shows, all that stuff in the next episode, especially because we'll be on break, so I should be able to talk about that stuff ad nauseum a little bit better. Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.